So, what I'm going to talk about today is how to go about in doing a science fair project. So, first, you want to get some poster boards and create a trifold display with the information I have up on the screen. So, you want to have a science project title, and from there, you want to state your problem. Ask your question. What is it that I'm trying to determine? And for purposes of this project, I'm going to use a simple idea. So I'm trying to determine if I expose a plant to sunlight and I water it regularly, what is going to happen? So from there, I'll state my hypothesis. I'll make an educated guess of a response to my question. So I'm going to guess that if I expose a plant to sunlight and I water it regularly, it's going to grow and it's going to be nice and green and it's going to survive. So through experimentation, I'm going to identify my control and variable groups for the experiment. So the control group is going to be the one that has no changes in the environment. So you're going to have a plant that has no sunlight and no water. Now my variable group is going to be the plant that is exposed to sunlight and it's watered regularly. And right now it's a good time for me to drink some water. We're talking about water. So once you do that, you have identified your control and variable groups. You're going to come up with your results. So we're going to do this experiment, let's say, for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, you're going to have your results. And we're going to say, well, after 2 weeks, the plant that had no sunlight and no water, it died. It just wilted and died. Now, the plant that had water and was exposed to sunlight, it turned green and it survived. So your observation is where the observation is where you're interpreting your results. And that's what we just did. We just talked about that. So your conclusion, what was the outcome or conclusion of this experiment? Well, that's what we just said. The plant that was exposed to sunlight and was watered regularly, it turned nice and green and it survived. And the one that had nothing didn't survive. It wilted and died. So that's the basics for a science fair project. And it's another good time to drink some more water. So your teacher might ask for the setup to be differently, but this is the basics of how you want to do it. Just having it this way. But if they have a different way, do it that way. So now what I want to talk about, excuse me, what I want to talk about is when I was in high school, how hard it was to come up with an idea for a science fair project. I was like the only one in class that had no clue what I was going to do. Everybody had their ideas. I had nothing. So my teacher was nice enough to set up a meeting with me and a PhD at the local university. His name was Dr. Dirk. I'll remember his name forever. And he says, why not do a project on testing desert plants for antimicrobial properties? And I did not know what I was getting myself into until I started doing it. So what I did is I went out to the desert and I don't remember how many plants I got, but I remember one of them was gobernadora, and that in English is the greasewood plant. And I got some of that plant and I made a solution at home. I boiled the water and I put the plant in there and I made a solution. So another weekend, I met up with my teacher and she handed me 2 vials and she said, be very careful with this because it's E. coli and it's Staphylococcus aureus. They're bad bacteria. You don't want to get it on yourself. I'm like, great. So I got some petri dishes and I swabbed one with E. coli and I swabbed the other one with Staphylococcus aureus. So that was just the control group. Nothing added to it, just the bacteria on the petri dishes have nutrient agar. So I swabbed them with that. The bacteria spread like wildfire. It spread like wildfire. So then I got my solution. That was the variable group. I added the solution of the plant to each of those petri dishes. And it looked like what happened is one had E. coli and one had Staphylococcus aureus with the solution I had. And what happened, it looked like it inhibited the growth of bacteria. It just reduces the bacteria but doesn't kill it. So that's what I determined for my project. So we pretty much went through everything on here. I'm not going to go through each step on there, but you pretty much get what I'm saying. So it determined that it did have some antimicrobial properties. And when I went to the science fair, it was a big science fair, it was the biggest science fair locally. And I won third place, if I remember correctly. My teacher was so elated. Oh my gosh, she won third place. So I like to teach this because I was also a judge for a science fair when I was in high school, selected to be a judge for a science fair. So I saw so many science fair projects, and that's why I'm teaching this to you. So you have an idea of how to do your science fair project, but coming up with ideas is what is going to be hard. But with so much artificial intelligence nowadays, you could probably ask one of those AI systems, Bard or Chat GPT, and throw it in there and ask it for ideas for a science fair project. I wish I had had those options when I was in high school because I didn't know what to do. But um, that's that in a nutshell. That's how you do a science fair project. And like I said earlier, if your teacher has a different way of doing it, go ahead and do it the way they want it. But this is just the general idea of how to get it done. So that's that. Talk to you soon.